And there we go. I got it wrong. My first transition, I went to the wrong screen straight away. It's amazing, isn't it? I do it every single time. First thing I need to know is, can we all be heard? So fire something in the chat and let me know whether we can be heard or not. And while we're doing that, I'm just going to say, Creaky's not here again this week, but he is coming back. People have messaged me about that, and it's not a non sequitur style takeover thing. Mr. Creaky will be back. But can you hear me in the chat? Mr. 42, has anybody said they can hear us yet?
Not yet. I can see
Not
us
yet.
on the screen. But...
Audio good, thanks Tatty. So audio is good. We can all be heard, which is excellent. Right, so with me again, over on this side, helping out is Mr. 42. He's going to be collecting questions in the chat and bringing it to our attention as the debate's going on. And I'm going to be honest with everyone, for the first time, I'm a bit nervous about hosting this debate. And I was thinking to myself today, how is this debate going to go? And when we talk about the topic, you'll perhaps realise why. I was saying with Grumpy Old Dude and Diedra off screen that, in my opinion, if two people are debating a subject and they can do it articulately, then any subject can be debated. If they're doing it sensibly and civilly and articulately, and that can educate people who've got views on either side. That's what I'm hoping for. This is a very dividing topic, and there may be some people questioning, should this topic be even on the channel? But I've kind of given my reason for it. If things go pear-shaped, the stream will just be ended. As simple as that. You know what we're like on this channel, but I'm going to give it a go. Mainly because the two debaters below, Grumpy Old Dude, first of all, you've seen him 2 or 3 times on this channel. Top bloke. I'll let him introduce himself in a second. Diedra as well has been extremely articulate and polite when I've spoken to her, although she's not been on the show before. So we'll see how this goes. But first of all, Mr. 42, thank you for helping me today. Do you want to just give people a bit of an insight into what your channel's about and shill yourself a bit, buddy?
Okay, good evening, gentle people. It's your favorite Mr. 42. I recently started making small videos about currently currents and COVIDiots. So give me a like and a subscribe if you want to. Catz should have put a link in the bottom in the description. Sorry, I'm not as handsome as Creaky, and I come with an accent where Creaky obviously doesn't have one, but I hope you enjoy.
Thank you for that. Actually, I'm not sure that I have got your link in the description, but if you post your channel link in a few minutes when the debate started, I'll pin it to the top of the comments.
I knew you would forget it.
It's yeah, I'm useless. Okay, Diedra, we've not met you on the channel before. Without giving away your side of the argument or anything like that, do you just want to introduce yourself? Have you got something you want to tell people about, a channel you want to shill or anything like that?
I don't really have a channel going yet. Maybe sometime in the future, that might be down the line. I mostly have a very small Twitter at Shellup911. So if you feel so inclined to interact with me after the debate, you can find me there. My whole point is just to engage with people. So yeah, all are welcome.
We'll put all those links in the description at the end of this debate. So if I've missed anything, you can come back at the end and you'll find it there. Sorry, not Mr. 42, Grumpy Old Dude. We've spoken a few times. Fascinating story, man. Every time I speak to you, I absolutely love it. But for those who don't know about you, just want to, tell them what you're all about?
I'm the Grumpy Old Dude. I have a YouTube channel that I try to, as much as I can, debunk racism and hate groups. Due to my 20 years being in the white supremacist movement, I have a lived experience and a lot of knowledge about these beliefs that I think is very valuable in fighting against harmful ideas. So that's pretty much what I try and do.
So that being said, I suppose it's time to introduce the topic. Like I said, Mr. 42, what are you going to do with the questions as the debate goes on?
I'm going to collect the questions in a separate window on my screen. I'm going to put them in when it's appropriate.
So if you've got any questions, if you tag in Mr. 42, he'll collect them, and then when it may be later on in the debate, but we'll get those questions out. Okay, so it's time to introduce the topic. The title of the debate is genetics and violence, and we've lost Diedra. She'll be back. She dropped out earlier on. Should we introduce the topic when she's back? There she is. She's back.
There she is.
Dropped out again. Never mind.
Relax, kid.
Okay.
Relax. It'll be okay.
So sorry.
Don't worry. The title of the topic is genetics and violence, but the conversation that sparked this has been an ongoing conversation between the two debaters today about genetics and well, how would I sum it up? A question has been asked, or a statement has been made, I believe, by Diedra, and you can address this in a second if I misrepresent you, that black people are genetically more violent than white people, and that's the stance I believe Diedra is taking. Go on, if I've misrepresented you.
Genetically more prone to violence. It's slight difference.
Okay. So, as you can see, that was the warning I gave earlier. This is going to be a taste topic. We will see whether we can pull this off. Let's see. Diedra, you have your opening statement prepared around about 8 minutes. Are you happy with that? You can do less, but keep it to that. You okay? Fire away.
Yes. All right. So my argument centers around the MAOA gene. Again, just to specify, I am making the argument of black people are genetically more prone to violence than white people. The MAOA gene, the best way to summarize its function and the relevant function to this topic is it stabilizes. It's relevant to serotonin. It stabilizes your mood. Serotonin's function is that while high levels of serotonin are known to cause impulsive behavior and aggressive behaviors, low levels of serotonin are known to cause irritability, agitation, and restlessness. There's evidence that the MAOA gene affects how much serotonin you have. So everyone has the MAOA gene. There are various forms, and any given man must have one, and women must have two, or women can have two. It comes on the X chromosome. So since women have two of those, they could have two variants. So the conversations and the study results can vary when you factor in gender. But I'm going to be focusing on the men, primarily because the reasons for that are because the relationship with the gene and women is more complicated because there are two variants, and I'm not a geneticist, and men are generally more violent than women. We generally make up more a small fraction of violent crimes, and basically the only time we are really relevant, we come close to being violent offenders compared to men, is when we're talking about fights between intimate partners, and even still in that case, men are known to offend more than women, to be the initiators in those cases. So not to mention as well, MAOA deficiency is the condition is mostly known to be common in men anyway, almost exclusively. So I'm focusing on the men. But back to the gene itself. Like I said, there are various forms. They fall under two specific categories: high activity and low activity. High activity is known to regulate proper levels of serotonin. There's evidence that low activity can cause high levels of serotonin, which, like I said earlier, can cause irritability, agitation, and restlessness. The significance of those three traits: agitation. The definition of it provided by Google is, or then the Google definition was they got it from WebMD. Is agitation may cause you to get annoyed easily. The definition of annoyed, again from Google, provided by Oxford Languages. annoyed is you could be you're slightly angry or irritated. It's the fact that violence stems from anger. So being angry makes you more prone to violence. So since being agitated may cause you to get angry, being agitated may cause you to be more prone to violent behavior. Going on to irritability. Irritability is defined as a quality or state of being irritable. Irritable is defined as having or showing a tendency to be easily annoyed or made angry. Again, violence often stems from anger. So being angry makes you more prone to violence. So irritability causes you to be more prone to violent behavior. Restlessness. Let's see. It presents itself in many ways. The key ones here are agitation and impulsivity. This is a quote from neuroscientist Manham Krakowski on the relationship between impulsivity and anger. It says, and I quote, impulsivity and strong emotional states often accompany violent acts. Aggressive individuals are likely to experience general difficulties with impulse control. The takeaway here is impulsivity and strong emotional states often accompany violent acts. Anger is a strong and emotional state. The Google definition of anger, provided by Oxford Languages again, is a strong feeling of annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. The takeaway here is impulsivity and anger often accompany violent acts. So impulsivity and anger together make you more prone to violent behavior. The summary of these three things is the combination of agitation, irritability, and restlessness make you more prone to violent behavior. Since low activity MAOA variants can and in some cases do lead to agitation and irritability and restlessness, low activity variants can and do lead to making a person genetically more prone to violent behavior. Black men have been found to have more Black men have been found to have low activity variants than white men based off of several distribution studies. I can share those sources anytime anyone wants to see them. Therefore, Black men are genetically more prone to violence than white men. The rate at which Black women are convicted for violent crimes more than white women is close to the same rate as white men or Black men are convicted more than white men. So we can we can assume that whatever degree that this gene is affecting Black men is probably the same degree that it's affecting Black women as well. So yeah, that is my opening statement, and I yield the rest of my time.
Okay. And I don't know if you timed that, Mr. 42, but that was almost bang on 8 minutes.
Oh, I did not find that.
All right.
Actually, neither did I. Just said that. Hopefully, it was. It sounded about 8 minutes. Okay. That's it. So, what we'll do is just straight over to Grumpy, and I'm going to monitor the chat just to see how that's going in there. But Grumpy, it's over to you, buddy.
Okay. So scientific or academic racism started in the mid 1800s, most notably by Samuel George Morton. He relied on anecdotal evidence and cranial measurements that, were nothing more than pseudoscience, and we know this. This was later replaced by crime statistics by a German-born man named Frederick Hoffman. He used the 1890 census to claim that Black people's proclivity to crime and violence. Although places like Alabama incarcerated Black people for such crimes as obscene language or false pretense, which was a statute used to punish Black men for changing employers before the end of the farming season. Of course, all of that was ignored. They were still considered crimes. Hoffman and others presented these numbers and brushed aside all the socioeconomic factors involved. After the Civil Rights Act in 1964 and the Voting Rights Act in 1965, far right-wing conservative groups started using a new way to justify Black people being more violent, the language of genetics. Academic racism has largely been sustained by the Pioneer Fund, who is listed on the SPLC website as a hate group. The studies that they fund and continue to fund are well outside of mainstream science. And genetic scholars such as Richard Lewontin have concluded in his book, A Short History of the Race Concept, that race has virtually no genetic significance. Another geneticist, Christopher Ferguson of Stetson University of Florida, was quoted by the BBC as saying, "It must be remembered that there is not one nor even two genes that by themselves can code for violence or crime. To some extent, we're all products of genetics and the environment, but that does not rob us of our free will." That was in October of 2014. Genetics being linked to specific ethnicity or behavior of a specific group is nothing less than academic or scientific racism, a pseudoscience that is not unbiased in its findings by anyone claiming to be neutral in their exploration. They are, in fact, naive, as their findings will inevitably be influenced by their own biasness. Eugenics, which is improving the genetic quality of white Europeans by removing those deemed inferior, gained massive support in the 20th century, in the early 20th century. It took the Holocaust to show the world the logical endpoint of such horrifying ideas. The murder of millions discredited most race-based science and those who believed in it. And in her book, Superior, The Return of Race Science, Angela, and I hope I don't brutalize her name, Angela Saini, says that mainstream scientists, geneticists, medical researchers still invoke race and use these categories in their work, even though we have been told for 70 years that they have no biological meaning, that they have only social meaning. Evidence shows us modern humans emerged throughout Africa, going east, then north, and then west in waves. Rather than distinct races or groups, the continual mixing populations produce gradients, with some having traits a bit more common in some regions than others. Lighter skin in the north is a later emergence. People were shocked to learn that the Cheddar Man, a man who lived in southwest England almost 10,000 years ago, would today be considered black. Like many geneticists, Angela Saini argues that since race is a social construct, it does not belong in genetics research. Scientists in other fields have the freedom to study race, but with that freedom comes responsibility. Scientists cannot afford to leave room for misinterpretation. Researchers using racial categories should fully understand what they mean, be able to define them, and know their history. One last quote from Angela Saini is, "That's part of the reason that we're fascinated by DNA ancestry testing. The reason it matters to us is because we feel that these racial categories have some type of meaning, that they can tell us something about ourselves, and that is simply wrong because they can't."
Right, so I was a little bit behind them. Just notices the chat's already getting a little bit spicy. Can I just ask people in the chat? I'm just going to chuck a couple more wrenches out as well to some people. Please don't be using them just to ban people for disagreeing with you. Please don't do that. And it's really only patrons of the channel that get a wrench. I'll have to revoke them after this. But I'm going to just chuck a few out there. While we're doing that, Mr. 42, before we actually start the head and forth, have you seen any comments that you want to bring forth? Any interesting points of view? Or
Yes, but I think they should be done later. It's basically the question, what is the exact standpoint, mostly for Diedra, but I think she will go into that.
I'm sorry, what is the what?
Your exact standpoint. I thought. Oh, hang on, that's one. The one question was from Mentos. Where did you get that about serotonin and violence? So I think he's asking
Serotonin.
what is your source?
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Right. Okay.
And another
Sorry.
question was.
Oh, sorry, I was pulling it up.
Okay.
I should do screen share, but I don't know when we would go into that. You said you might want to do that later, so
Okay.
whenever we do the next step, I could go over that.
Yeah, sorry, it's all gone a bit flat there. I was just throwing some spanners out in the chat just to help the chat run a bit more smoothly. So we both had our opening statement. If you want to ask a question, if you tag in Mr. 42, once he's got maybe 3 or 4 questions that he wants to use, he'll stop the debate and we'll throw those questions out, and that's how we'll do it while Creaky's not here because he's the tech guy. So this is my way on it. So tag in Mr. 42, he'll collect
And
him and
I have this
interrupt. Other
awesome
than
button on screen.
yeah, absolutely. Other than that, what we're going to do now is we're going to go into a little back and forth between Grumpy and Diedra, but to keep it civil, I'm going to put a little bit of timer on and give you up to about 2 minutes to ask a question or respond to a question and ask another one. So Diedra, we'll start with you. So you get 2 minutes, and Grumpy, please don't interrupt in that 2 minutes. I know you won't do, and then you'll get your 2 minutes to respond. We'll see how this goes back and forth. Diedra, off you go.
All right. Before I do that, do you mind if I ask a question real quick?
Of course.
Are we going to do a Q&A later specifically for the chats, just so I know that I don't need to use my 2 minutes to answer this question that came from the chat? Because I do have things that I would like to say about.
Mr. 42 is collecting the ones from the chat, and we'll answer them as he brings them up as we go along. So we'll address. You don't need to use your 2 minutes for that. No, you just go into the debate now.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. So, Grumpy Ed made a few statements, and I guess the key ones that I noticed were, I am well aware that a lot of studies, like the ones that I am using in the past, were not done in the best ethical light. They weren't done in very good faith. But I don't think that we can continue to assume that any study that has to do with race is going to be done unethically, just inherently. I don't think we can, that's healthy as a society going forward. It's not like it's impossible or irrelevant. That's another thing. The two things that there's no biological meaning in race, and race is just a social construct. Those things might be true to a degree, but there are differences in race. There are differences in cultures. If you physically look at a person, they're physically different, and that goes down to different levels of cholesterol, high blood pressure, reactions to certain treatments. And this is not necessarily, these things aren't the same for all people of those races, but there are generalities that do apply to certain races that do help in a lot of different scenarios when it comes to addiction treatment, general health, and as well as addressing societal issues. Not everyone's problems are the same when it comes to race. So it's not as if it's inherently wrong to see someone for their race. And I do understand that it's a very sensitive subject, and it can alarm a lot of people. But I do think that it's still worth it for us to try to travel down these roads in a way that is ethical, because it can help people. It can, at the end of the day, if you do it the right way, it can help people, especially when we're talking about societal issues. So, Black people have a lot of them right now. Black people have a lot of issues, whether or not they are at fault. They're different. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, just say we just hit 2 minutes, so just wrap it up. That's all right. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll extend the time, and we'll get into more fluid back and forth depending on how the debate goes. I just don't want things going off on a tangent. But Miss Grumpy Old Dude, your slot. Off you go, mate.
Now, I do agree with a lot of what Diedra says. except, it's not. Race is a social construct. There is only one race. There are humans. There are many different ethnicities of humans due to, sub-Saharan Africans migrating to different areas. And over time, evolution occurred. It created lighter skinned people in the northern climates, darker skinned people that stayed near the equator. There's many different gradients. People come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. That does not mean that we are different races. As far as the genetics thing go, there are, and I have an article that I can share later if you'd like. There are 40 genes related to aggressive behavior in humans and in mice. That does not mean that those 40 genes affect one ethnicity more than another.
Okay, Diedra.
Well, there is evidence that these genes do affect this ethnicity more than that one, and I mean, where it's I understand. No matter what you want to call it, whether you want to call it race, whether you want to call it ethnicity, there are different groups of people who look different, act different, and not completely, but to certain degrees that do stand out. That it's in these things don't deserve to be ignored. I think that's insulting to a certain degree, to not only to Black people, but to everyone. People should be able to take pride in the cultures that they come from, and an aspect of that culture is the ethnicity, whatever you want to call it. That is an aspect, and people should be able to take pride in that. Not necessarily in the negatives that whatever their culture or ethnicity has done in the past or does in the present, but all the good that they have done, because every group has that. So I don't think that should be ignored. I think that it's dangerous to go down a path where we try to be blind to these groups, and if we're really focused on a solution to the societal issues with Black people, I think we have to recognize them as their own ethnicity.
And we absolutely do, but none of this has anything to do with their genetics. You keep saying societal issues, and that's my entire point. It is not how Black people are designed through genetics. It is societal issues. Genetics does not play a part in the suffering, of Black Americans.
It's not the complete answer, but it is a contributing factor. But if you were to put it into an equation, what percent of a contributing factor do I think that genes are? I'd probably say no more than 25 to 30%, probably more realistically about 15 to 20. There's everyone is a victim of their circumstances, and you can't get away from that. But everyone also has free will. So that's, even though free will might be the smallest percentage of them all, because your circumstances is the largest one. The world you're born into, the place you live, and all of that, that's going to be the number one factor, the biggest factor in in determining your life. And free will is probably going to be the smallest thing there, but it's the most important, because in my opinion, it's the most powerful. So no matter what your genes say, that it's not deterministic, your genes. They're just a contributing factor. That can make you more prone to certain behaviors if you find yourself in a certain environment or around certain triggers.
And guys, again, though.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I was just saying, we've got Mr. 42's got a question, but if you finish this point you're on, and then when you feel that you're happy with the finishing this point, we'll go to Mr. 42 and he can read out the questions he's got, and then we'll start again and go to the next bit, if that's okay. So you let us know when you think this point is solved.
Okay. But again, though, geneticists have, actual proven geneticists have said genetics do not play a part in this. It's more than that, and you need more than one gene to control your behavior. It's not one or two, it's a multitude of different genes. So just by saying, black people or black men, as you said, you want to stick with mostly men, having, a variant of the MAOA gene, just that gene alone is not enough to say that black men are prone to be more violent than white men. It needs to be a combination of genes.
No, it needs to be a combination. Well, I wouldn't say that it needs to be a combination of genes. I think I explained clearly how this one gene can make you more prone to certain characteristic traits. Those three are irritability, agitation, and restlessness. That's tied to your serotonin levels, which this gene is responsible for controlling how much you have. So, yes, this one gene can make you more prone to being angry, and being angry makes you more prone to violent behaviors.
But that's not scientifically correct. And I said, and again, I will quote Christopher Ferguson, who is a geneticist at Stetson University in Florida. It must be remembered that there is not one or even two genes that by themselves can code for violence or crime. You have to have a multitude.
I haven't looked into other genes, but I'm not going to take a guess. I'm not going to guess on things on the public record. But I do know that I have evidence that states that this deficiency in this gene is led to aggressive behaviors. I can send it to you anytime. I can pull it up in the screen share if that's necessary. I don't know much more than I can say about that. I don't think that I'm here to change your mind about anything, but I'm stating my case and the evidence that I've found.
My question would be, where did those studies come from? And are those studies actually done by geneticists?
Sure. I'm trying to do a screen share here.
While you're doing that, Mr. 42, just check your WhatsApp. I've just sent you a message.
Oh, yes.
Oh, you're screen sharing, right? Cool. I thought that was Mr. 42 putting his WhatsApp on the screen then.
I did nothing.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah. I can. Hang on. Let me just see if I get into the OBS and just sort the...
okay.
Sort it out because... We're way up.
Okay.
Forgot when we screen share it messes up with the OBS. So this is your screen. Where have we all gone? We've gone here. Drop that down. Okay, good to go. Yep, right. Good to go, Diedra.
So this is from Medline Plus. This is just a... I'm sorry?
Good to go, he said.
Can you see?
Oh, seems to be a bit of feedback somewhere.
Okay, I'm not sure if you can see or not.
Yeah,
okay,
you're good to go.
I can see that.
Okay. So let's see. I got one of my sources that state one of the health conditions related to MAOA, which is MAOA deficiency. Right. I'm looking up their references here. Sorry, it looks like my internet is going slow. Okay. So this is the study. We'll go ahead and the question is, are these guys? The first question you asked me is, are these guys geneticists, right?
Genesis, right?
Geneticists, right? I assume they are.
Seems to be a bit of feedback from somewhere. Somebody got a microphone on, or like getting some feedback from the headphones.
I turned mine off actually.
Is it me?
I don't know, because it seems to be coming from somewhere, but we'll see. Maybe if everybody else can mute while Diedra speaks, and then we'll know. I'll put myself on mute.
Okay.
His name Nellen Brunner. Is that how I do that?
Yeah, the echo seems to have gone. All right, Diedra, it's all yours. Take it away.
Okay. I'm still trying to
Figure out who Brunner is.
exactly. Not like these guys are famous or anything. I keep getting results for his study and not him himself. So
That's all right. While you're finding your link, if you
work my way around that.
If you stop screen sharing while you're finding the link you're after, and then you can find it in the background, and we'll go to the questions Mr. 42's got, and then you can sort of discuss those, and then when you've got it in your own time, just let us know and bring it back up. How's that sound? Cool. No, that sounds good.
That works.
Right, let's see. Mr. 42, give us your questions, buddy.
Yeah, the problem with that is it's mostly a question for her, so that will not give her time to search. It's from multiple people, mostly White Watts, Luke Mitchell, and Theo Fungi, basically asking what her definition of a black man is. Has it to do with African American, African heritage, or any other description?
Well, I found studies for both Africans. I found studies in multiple places. So they were there was one in Africa classified as African men, and then another one. The other two were specifically for African Americans versus white men. So it's both. This gene was found in both men of African descent and so I believe it was New Zealand, African men in New Zealand, and then African American men in America versus white men in America.
And I think I have another question for you from Tati Bogle and Matt Wooten. They have different questions, but I think it's basically the same. Tati Bogle says, how much do society norms contribute to violent tendencies opposed to genetics, nature versus nurture? And Matt Wooten describes that if you have identical twins adopted in two different homes in different societies, you probably end up with different character traits. So I don't believe it can be all genetics.
Yeah, I'm not making the argument that it's all genetics. I'm not making that argument at all. I am only saying, like I said, that these genes, that this gene can make you more prone to violent behavior if you're in a certain, if you're in a situation where you experience certain triggers or more stressors than is usual. Basically, what I'm saying is Black people do not react to, or Black people are prone to react more violently in stressful situations than white people are. That's basically what this gene says. I'm still trying to do my search, but I know I'm not doing it
Brunner
right.
was an American psychologist who made significant contributions to human cognitive psychology and cognitive learning theory and educational psychology. He was not a geneticist.
Okay. Now, M. Nellen. There's like 4 names on this, so they couldn't have all just been.
Right. Dead Kennedy in space might fix the echo for me. He said he thinks it could have been my headphones. Is anyone hearing any echo now while I'm speaking?
No.
Oh, look at that. Thank you, Dead Kennedy.
No.
And it also
Wait.
says that this study was done at the Department of Human Genetics at the University Hospital in the Netherlands. This place, I cannot pronounce the name, but that's the name of the university hospital. So even if they are only names, I imagine that at least one of these guys on the list are geneticists, and they're probably naming just people who were the most involved and probably sponsored it, I assume, but I'm not sure about that.
Nellen was a semantics scholar with a PhD in, what the hell is that? Let me look this up. Hold on. All right. I got this page.
While he's looking that up now, oh, sorry, go on, mate.
Nellen was a semantics scholar with a PhD in philosophy. Again, not a geneticist.
Okay. XO Brakefield, a BREK.
Oh, give me a second. I gotta get back out of there. All right. What was the name?
XO Break E Field. I don't know how he would pronounce that.
Spell it right. Okay, maybe Catz can help us out with this because I don't know what these letters mean.
Mm-hmm.
Xander O. Brakefield, PhD, DF/HCC.
DF/HCC. I wonder if someone in the chat can research. That's not something I've heard. No, I'm not too sure, and I can't Google it while the debate's on because I'll ruin the stream. I'll take you off screen. Maybe someone in the chat can fact check that for us. Or how about you, Mr. 42? Have you got access to Google there? Can you check what that means?
The DFHCC stands for Dana-Farber Harvard Cancer Center.
Oh, okay.
So he might be a geneticist.
Right.
That doesn't tell us enough, though.
Now, see, I hear every time I speak, I hear myself. What's that?
Oh,
it's me.
The echoes on. I wonder if it's on your side.
It could be. Okay, I didn't hear myself that time, though.
Yeah, we didn't. I think we've sussed it.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, Theo, we got it.
The reason I bring this up is because, like I said in my opening statement, there were so many studies that were done by people working for the Pioneer Fund or funded by the Pioneer Fund, which before we came here today, you and I had a previous discussion, and you brought up J.P. Rushton, and I kind of gave you a little bit of his background. J.P. Rushton got a hold of any academic scholar or anybody that would, seem legit to write papers and articles proclaiming this. And every mainstream geneticist has said that they are wrong. You cannot have just one or two genes that control anything in not only in the human body, but in the human mind. You have to have numerous genes to regulate levels of serotonin, epinephrine, norepinephrine, testosterone. All of that comes from multiple different genes working in conjunction.
Okay. Well, even if that is true, it is at least there's a lot of evidence that states that this gene is a very much of a contributing factor in that state. So even if you want to say that there are other genes that might outweigh this one, in some cases, this gene does cause people to have agitation,
but-
irritability, and restlessness. So and those genes aren't for sure going to cause people to be violent. It just makes them more prone to those behaviors, meaning those people should maybe just live a life where they're avoiding certain stressors and they will be fine. But most people should try to live that way anyway. So I mean, it's not like the stance that I'm making is such a huge claim as every like you should do something extreme because you have this gene, or something terrible should happen to Black people because they're so violent. I'm not making any kind of statement like that. I'm only stating that this gene might be a contributing factor into what we seem to see as a part of these issues going on in society. And Black people have a reason to be upset. They've been treated very badly over history. So it's not like this comes out of nowhere, or it's inherently wrong to be angry. I'm not making that statement, that stance either. I'm simply saying that if there's any truth to this, which I do think that there is, we need to be comfortable talking about that. And we cannot think that anyone who wants to talk about that is someone who's a racist person who has only malintent for Black people, because that's not the case.
Can I ask, where did you first hear about this?
What did when I Googled, I first heard about this when I was trying to make the argument with you in a way in the past, when I was trying to base it off of Black people tending to lose their virginities at a younger age and speaking louder and things like that to prove that Black people were more aggressive. And you didn't like those.
What I meant.
So
that's
I
not what I
asked
meant.
you. No, so that's when did I first hear about the gene?
When did you first hear about this idea that genetics could make any ethnicity more prone to violence?
That's what I'm talking about. I was trying to make the point to you that Black people are more violent in a private conversation with us in the past, and you did not like the way I was doing that. So I asked you what would, and you said, show me some information on some genes. So that's when I started Googling it.
Okay, maybe you're misunderstanding. Okay. Before we started talking, did you have this idea about genetics?
Did I think that Black people were genetically more violent? I didn't know for a fact, no, but I thought that it was highly possible, yes.
When did you start to think that? When we started talking, or?
I don't remember ever not thinking that.
That intrigues me. This is a belief that came about mainly from, racist academics trying to find a reason to, make Black people look violent. They wanted to find a reason, and they decided to use academic science, which has been debunked. But nobody introduced you to that idea. It's just something that you thought.
I've lived as a Black person around a lot of Black people all of my life, and then I've also lived around a lot of white people as well. And I've always had the view that Black people are more aggressive than white people. That's just my lived experience. The ghetto is different than the suburbs.
That would be an anecdotal fallacy, though. Your personal.
I mean, I'm not making that claim. So I'm not making that claim simply off of my experiences, though. That's the whole point of me doing all of the research. You just asked me where I got the original inkling where I might think that Black people were more genetically violent or more prone to violence than white people. So I answered the question.
I get that. I understand that. It surprised me that this wasn't something that someone told you, that you just got this idea on your own. That caught me off guard.
So can I just clarify?
No,
then?
I
Obviously
mean, it comes from the fact a lot of.
Sorry, yeah, there's a, you know what, there's a little bit of a lag. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to refresh my page, and if you all just hit refresh on your page, we'll come back and the lag should be, disappear.
Okay.
You know, we talked about it earlier. And so I'm just going to refresh my page. We're back in 1 second. You do the same, and hopefully that should sort that out. So, there we go. So can I just clarify just while with you there, Diedra? This debate happened because you've had previous debates and discussions in the past, and with those debates and discussions you've had in the past, the genetic side of it was never a part of it. You had the impression that you had about how certain people are prone to more violence than others, but then throughout the discussion you were asked to provide genetic evidence for it, and then that's where we turned to genetics. That wasn't the argument all along. Okay. All right, Grumpy,
No.
back to you, mate.
No.
All right. So, in these studies that you looked up, though, did you also look up peer reviews for these studies?
It was impossible not to see them, not necessarily specifically peer reviews, but feedback, how people, respected people, journalists, things like that, who were speaking for their peers, found, people who did not agree with these, because they themselves did not agree with the outcomes of these. It was impossible to avoid. Google does not even want to show me the evidence that I was looking for, because that's just not the political climate that we're in. It's in my opinion, it's very, very difficult to find these studies.
But couldn't it be it's very difficult to find these studies because they've all been debunked?
Well, I don't believe that they've been debunked, and I haven't read anything that has proved to me that they've been debunked. So.
Okay, but I've tried to send you different links showing you what mainstream geneticists say.
Not really. You sent me some stuff about Rushton, but I don't think that we're supposed to be talking about what's happened in the past. That's not what happened in your debate with Christopher. So why wouldn't we keep that same standard here?
Well, yeah. Because that debate turned into a dumpster fire, and you're a bit more respectable. I'm just saying.
Again, we're just bringing up stuff that's happened in the past, which I don't think that we're supposed to be doing.
So let's talk about the genetics. Let's get back on track with that then.
Yeah.
Who wants to go? Or sorry, go on, mate.
The point I'm trying to make is, like I quoted a couple of actual geneticists in here, in my opening arguments that specifically said, this is not a genetic issue.
That's not what you said. That's not what those articles said. I don't think. I think they were saying that this is not only a genetics issue, that genetics cannot solely account for the aggression, not that they don't matter at all. They did state that race doesn't matter at all, but that's not true.
Okay. No, they're not saying race doesn't matter. They're saying separating people into individual groups and calling them separate races is a misnomer.
Okay, I don't agree with that.
That's a social construct. We are all one species, regardless of.
Just because you separate people into different races doesn't mean you're saying that they're different species. There's a difference between a species and a race.
Right, but when the idea of race first came out, they were trying to categorize each ethnicity as being different, not all the same type of human.
Well, they are
which
different.
we are. Yes,
are different.
We are ingredients, but we are all still human. We all
Yes,
share
we are way
99%.
more alike than we are different. We are still different.
Exactly. And here, I'll quote this again from Richard Lewontin. Race has virtually no genetic significance.
I mean, it depends on what you mean by significance. How significant you think that these things are. I don't think if you are talking about the grand scale of things that could be important ever in any situation, no, they're not that significant.
No,
I agree.
what he's trying to say is your genetics can't be held accountable for your actions or your thoughts.
Not solely, no. I'm not making that point at all. They are just a contributing factor, just like every single other aspect of your living life is a contributing factor.
Okay, they could be, but to say that one certain ethnicity acts differently than another based on genetics is
Not
just
solely. I'm
scientifically
not saying
incorrect.
it's so. I'm not saying solely. I'm saying it's a contributing factor to them acting differently.
And
Just because they're because your genes are a contributing factor to your behavior. Period. Of
I
course, if
disagree.
one group acts differently, their
So
genes are a contributing factor to their different behavior.
can I chip in with something just because this seems to be like the pivotal point of the debate. So can I just clarify that I'm understanding what you're saying right? So you're saying that the genes are a contributing factor, but they're not the single most important factor or anything like that. And I know you were asked before. I think you said you think it's about 25% of a factor, didn't you? Did I make that up?
I would say more like 15, 20. 15,
Okay,
20.
15,
At
20.
most, it would be, at most, it'd be 20, 20, 25, 30.
Can I just ask, because this does seem to be the pivotal point. Can I ask you to clarify how you quantified that? How did you arrive at that?
Well, that's a great question. My brain,
I
you're
am
asking
known for
me
them.
to speak like some inner parts of my brain here that I've never even spoken out loud before. Okay, let's see. How do I explain that? Well, your genes are like it's kind there's a lot that's involved in your genes, in my opinion. I'm not a geneticist, so we need to keep that in mind here. And I could be 100% wrong on that equation. That's just my opinion. I'm not pulling that from any kind of scientific anything. That's just the best way that I can paint the picture of my own opinion. So I view genes as a culmination of not only your own lived or your own inheritance from your parents, but their inheritance from each generation in the past. Okay, so if you take all of that information, that is what you're getting. And if you quantify that in a person, and what makes up a person, and what determines their what percent that is responsible for in their decision making, it would probably be about 15 to 20%, in my opinion. That's really the best way that I can describe it. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Okay, but science proves to us that your genes may not be the same as your parents because you might not have had the same diet your parents did. You might not have lived in the same area of the world that your parents did. There could be many different things that actually mutate your genes to
Okay,
not match up to your parents.
but how likely is that? Like how
It's highly likely.
Put a percentage on that? Of all people who doesn't have mostly the same genes, or inherited mostly of their genes from their parents?
I'm not going to put a percentage on that, but I will give you an example. I grew up dirt poor. We didn't have a whole lot of money. I ate a whole lot of welfare food. But when I had my child, I made sure she didn't. I made sure she had better food than me, better living conditions, a better education than me. And that, without a doubt, according to science, just that diet alone would have given her stronger, better genes than me.
I think. Can I clarify that as a biology teacher? Is that okay for me just to clarify the point? I think what you're talking about though is epigenetics, Grumpy. So like the actual genes, the genes that your offspring will have, obviously going to be the combination of the genes that the parents have, but the way those genes are turned on and off or regulated in the offspring can be affected by the lifestyle of the parent. Lots of studies will show, for example, talking about drought in plants, how that will affect offspring for many, many generations. I did a video on this a while ago, and there was, I think, women from the Irish potato famine, and it did looked at studies on how the genes were regulated and turned on and off 4 or 5 generations down the line. And although they had the same genes and inherited the same genes, the epigenetics, which control the genes, were controlling them differently. So, I mean, I haven't got anything to hand with that, but that is what modern science does say. It's quite a new brand of genetics, but it's a really exciting one.
Okay. I understand what you're saying there, but at the end of the day, unfortunately, that doesn't happen as much as we want it to in the Black community. And the situations where you see these issues with violence the most are the situations where you're going to see the least of that, in my opinion, at least. And I'm sure I could find studies on that, but I don't have that.
And that would lead us into an entirely different conversation, because it doesn't have anything to do with their genetic makeup. It has to do with the situation in this country.
I would say that the situation in this country is a larger contributing factor than their genes. But I wouldn't say that genes don't play a role at all.
I think we're getting to a time in this debate now where I think you both had a really good say. And, I said at the beginning that we were going to alternate. And after the first round of alternations, you both seem to be so civil, even with the lag, that we haven't had to do that. And I just thought, stuff it, just leave it to it. And you've taken what's a really, really sensitive topic that we still may get flack for putting on. I don't know, we'll see. But you've both debated it really, really well and respectfully. So thank you so much for that. We're not done, though. We've got another 20 odd minutes to go, but questions have been building up. And Mr. 42 has been collecting them.
Okay.
And then if depending how many questions there are, if you want to go back and have like a final summary debate or whatever after the questions, we're free for that. But Mr. 42, this could take a while, this bit, because I know the questions have been coming in thick and fast. So
no, it's not so much. There were a few questions that are already asked by either Grumpy or Diedra to each other. So I skipped them, I deleted them, and I have nothing left right now. So please, chat, do your best to give me some questions.
Well, tag Mr. 42. Tag at Mr. 42. I've just put that in the chat now. If you tag him, any question you read,
don't forget
he'll be keeping an eye in the chat, and he'll put those out. For now, just for this 2 minutes, I'm just going to advertise the live chat box travels about somewhere between 10 o'clock and 10:30 on the Conspiracy Catz channel tonight with Team Skeptic. Should be fun. Right, so while Mr. 42 is collecting some of the questions that should be coming in now, just tag him in. Do you want to have one final question, Diedra? Do you want to present to Grumpy?
No, I don't really think so.
I do have a question.
Go on.
Yeah, I have a question for Diedra.
Sure.
If genetics played a part in Black people being more violent, explain to me countries like Malawi and Ghana, who are almost predominantly 100% Black in population, yet are some of the most peaceful countries in the world.
Well, not all Black people are the same. Like I said, I think that the outside circumstances play a bigger role. And I also think that free will is the most important. So even if those people do have this gene, which I don't know if they do, they might not have it. That might be the case. But even if they do, they might have a culture which makes them have outside circumstances that don't cause stressors that make this gene a problem. Or even if they do, they might have a culture where they believe in, where they act on their free will, where they're not going to stoop to levels of violence. I don't know why. There could be a million different reasons as to why they might have this gene are still peaceful. Just like there are most Black people don't find themselves in even in America in violent criminal trouble. So just because you have the gene doesn't mean you're a violent person. It just means that you might, if you find yourself in a certain situation, you might be more prone to be, you might find yourself be acting more violent than a white person because of, partly because of this gene. So, yeah.
Okay, but that's where the problem comes in. With this kind of science, how am I trying to say this? What's the word I'm looking for here? You can't have any exceptions if you're going to claim that genetics in any way are responsible for making one group prone to a certain action. There can be no exceptions.
Why not?
Because then that debunks your theory that this group is prone to do that.
No, you would just have to explain why the theory doesn't apply to that group.
Okay,
That
but
group is different for this reason. That doesn't mean that the claim is wrong.
But your group,
especially if you go ahead. Sorry.
See, it's the lag. For anyone watching, we have got a little bit of lag that we're dealing with. It's not an unmoderated debate. Everyone's dead respectful. We've just got a little bit of a lag. Sorry, Grumpy, go on.
Yeah. Your group for this debate is Black people are genetically more prone to violence than white people. Yet we see a discrepancy in Malawi and Ghana and other places where Black people aren't violent.
Yes, I'm making a generalization. A generalization is not absolute. There are exceptions to every rule. That's just a fact of life. Like a person, you shouldn't kill people. That's a rule, except when it's in self-defense. Okay, there's exceptions to every rule. That's just a fact of life. You just because there is a situation where this statement does not apply doesn't mean the statement isn't true ever. That's just not how this works.
Okay, but science isn't rules. Science is facts. You cannot have a discrepancy in facts.
Well, the fact is the generalization. The fact is it's a generalization. It's not an absolute.
But
so built into the fact is there are exceptions to the rule. That's what I'm saying.
But generalizing an ethnicity leads to horrible things.
I know that still does not mean that you shouldn't tell the truth.
Right. But if science tells us there's a discrepancy here, then it cannot be a fact.
I don't agree with that.
I don't know how to make you agree with that.
I think that's a good. Well, what's the title of this show? Agree to disagree. That might be a good point to bring the questions in. I think that's kind of nailed. That point there has kind of nailed this debate, hasn't it? And what it's on. Mr. 42, I'm going to pass it over to you now. Tag in Mr. 42. Don't tag me in, because I will cock everything up. Right? Tag Mr. 42.
I got a few
questions.
I got a few. The first one from Shannon Q. Please explain how genetics can create cognitive states independent of environmental factors. What portion of the causal and midbrain structure is affected and how?
Okay, you were reading a little bit fast. Do you mind if you could slow that down and tell me
Sure,
again?
I will do that again. Please explain how genetics can create cognitive states independent of environmental factors. And then second part of the question, what portion of the causal or midbrain structure is affected and how?
I don't know what portion of the brain is affected. I am not a geneticist, and I never claimed to be.
Okay.
And I missed um, the middle part of the first sentence. Is he asking me how does this gene alone create a certain state in the brain? Is that what he's saying?
She.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she, but
Shannon
doesn't
Q
matter.
is in the chat.
Sorry, I didn't catch the name either.
Explain. Yeah,
Um,
I do not.
Let me scroll
I
up.
don't always understand the question themselves. So
It'd be better if I could. Is it possible for me to see?
yes, I put it in the side.
Oh, I've got
here
it. I've got it
for
here.
you.
Explain how genetics can create cognitive states independent of environmental factors. That was the first part.
Oh, I'm
So-
not stating that it can. I do not. I have read multiple times that you cannot separate. It's basically impossible to separate genes from environment. Again, I'm only stating that this gene makes you more prone to violence. Uh, um, Meaning, when you have this gene and you're mixed with certain environmental situations, you might react more violently than the next person. Excuse me. So I'm not saying anything about it independently creating cognitive states in the brain at all. So I'm not going to explain that.
Then I have a question from Dead Kennedy in Space. If every other factor matters more than genetics, why even make the genetic argument?
Because it does factor in, and mostly because people don't want to hear it. People don't want to talk about it. People want to say that it's false when it's true. In my opinion, it's true, and that's only a number of things right now that we do not want to talk about. Right now, we're not allowed to criticize Black people in any way on the public record. That is, you are a bad person, you are racist. And I don't think that that's going to help Black people, because I don't think that if you fix all of the racism in this country, if tomorrow we woke up and there was no more racism towards Black people, and we just lived in a utopia, a paradise for Black people, I still think that or at least that's how they were treated by others. I still think Black people would still have problems. I don't think that life would be perfect for us. Meaning racism alone is not the cause of all the issues that we see in Black community right today. So I think it's important that we try to figure out exactly what those causes are. And even if this is only a small percentage, it still needs to be addressed. Maybe not as much as I am right now, but apparently that's necessary because no one wants to talk about it.
But
Okay.
that's the thing. They have addressed it. They have addressed it and found no evidence for it.
Some people have done studies in unethical ways, sure, but that's not what the evidence that I found.
Mr. 42, have you got something?
In between, I have another question, but in between we have a super chat for $5 from Auricard the Immortal. It's a bit of a strange one. Does everyone here agree that dating preferences are a reasonably benign example of eugenics?
No. Wait, what? I didn't understand the question. Can you repeat that?
I can repeat it. Does everyone here agree that dating preferences are a reasonably benign example of eugenics?
No.
No.
But
eugenics is you selectively.
No, I know selective breeding.
And that's not a mating preference, is it? That's the complete opposite of allowing people to mate with who they want to. Selecting for them is
I think the point is there I think the point he's making is there is an aspect of eugenics just to people picking their own partners, because we tend to pick the best traits, or the best traits tend to be what people want in society. Your strong guy or things like that. So I would say that there is some truth to that statement, yes.
Any other questions, Mr. 42?
I have one more from Wait What, but I think I know the answer already. As all people originated from Africa, shouldn't all people have these genes?
I'm so sorry. I'm having trouble with your accent, and I'm really apologize. Can you slow that down and repeat it one more time?
As all people originated from Africa, shouldn't all people have those genes?
Well, there's a process of breeding out certain things, and genes are one of them. It's part of evolution, so no, not necessarily.
Grumpy, what do you think?
Well, from the advice that I've taken from other people, looking up certain articles, every one of us has the MAOA gene in different variants.
So it's possible for certain groups to have breeded out certain variants, or just never have had that variant in that area in the first place, or things like that. So no, everyone doesn't necessarily have to have the same variant. Yeah.
And it's also possible for every ethnicity to carry the same variant. You have to take that on an individual basis.
Can I just say to people in the chat, I've just seen a question aimed at me there from Dildo Baggins. I love that name. But I'm trying to just check that everything's okay with the OBS and whatnot. Can you tag in Mr. 42 with questions, because he'll collect them and read them. If you tag me in, I'm probably not going to see it. But if you tag in at Mr. 42, he will read them. And I think he's got something to say now.
Yeah, we got another super chat again from Algar the Immortal, and it's a reply to your answer. It says, "Thanks, babe," and it's kissing smiley. and now he made me read it out. So thank you, Algar.
Is that someone you know by any chance, Diedra?
Say that again.
Is that someone you know?
Immortal.
Sorry.
Oh yes, I know him very well. Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Let's see. You said Dildo Baggins had a question? Could the problem in the black community... Huh? Wait, that's not a sentence. Dildo, can you please rephrase that question? Because I cannot make a sentence of it.
I have a question, which I have done absolutely zero research on. But I'm going to ask it anyway, because it did occur to me when you were making your opening statement. You made your opening statement, Diedra, and you talked about rates of conviction for violent offences. I wouldn't, and you put that down to genetics. What percentage of that will be down to genetics? Like, how does that mean you're ruling out on basis of like institutionalized racism? Or racism that is causing those higher conviction rates?
Not ruling it out, but I think that if you were able to wake up tomorrow morning and there was no more institutionalized racism at all, I do still think that we would have Black people going to jail. And I do not think that the number would be 13%, and that would be, I don't think that it would be proportional to to our population size. I do think that there is a cultural, bare minimum, a large cultural issue going on in the Black society, mostly where we don't really like conforming to the idea of what you're supposed to do to be successful in America, mostly because these ideals are considered to be white ideals. You're get married, or first get an education, get married, get a job, and have kids, and in that order. I don't think that Black people tend to they don't like that idea very much, because considered to be white. So that is the number one thing that I think is happening in our culture that is causing us to go down other routes of being quote unquote successful. And we have decided that one of those routes are going to be gang violence and selling drugs, things like that. So I think that genes plays a role, but it's a very small aspect. And I think it's mostly where genes comes in is the fact that since we didn't like this white ideal, the getting an education, getting married, since we turned to such a, in my opinion, violent gang violence and selling drugs, that's a violent thing to do. And I think that's where we see this gene coming in the most, not necessarily in things like parenting and every other aspect of a Black life. But I mean, it's there in a lot. So yeah, I went on a tangent. I apologize. I hope I answered the question, but
I think so.
yeah.
Transfer over to Grumpy, see what he thinks, and then go back to Mr. 42.
Let me post a counter argument to that. You know, taking crimes or statistics at face value is something that's been going on since the mid to late 1800s after the Civil War. You know, it's a mistake. Those crime rates can be explained not only by institutional or systemic racism, whatever you want to refer to it as, but also because of poverty and, you know, other related disadvantages where people of color in this country to this day still live in poorer and more disadvantaged neighborhoods than most white people. And in those neighborhoods, you know, concentrated poverty has a criminogenic effect. There's lack of jobs, you know, less educational opportunities, lower educational value in a lot of these schools, and a lot more idle time. And all of those things put together can lead people to act out and commit criminal behaviors. But it's also a proven fact that Black people are arrested 7 times more than white people for the same crimes. I could be pulled over and have a dime bag of marijuana in my car, and the cop will give me a warning, tell me to get rid of it, whatever, and let me go. Whereas a Black man would be going to jail. And we've proven that. That's, you know, I mean, there's no other way to get around that Black people get locked up a whole lot more than white people for the same crimes. And as people trying to use the FBI statistics, there's a little tidbit of information for you. The FBI gets their information from 46.4% of police agencies around the country. And out of those 46.4% of these agencies, they only cover 44% of the entire U.S. population. Most of these police departments and other, you know, police agencies are located in inner city areas, you know, higher populated areas. So the FBI doesn't get criminal statistics from places where I live because hardly anybody lives here. They don't care. But every murder committed in Elk County, Pennsylvania in the past 30 years has been a white person killing a white person. But you won't see that on the FBI crime statistics because this is such a rural area.
It's 42. Back to you, sir. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I think the lag got in the way there. Mr. 42, you are muted, by the way. He's got himself muted. That's my trick.
I noticed that Creaky does that, so to feel everyone at home, I had to do it at once as well. We have a super chat again from Arugard the Immortal, this time for $3. Someone sent this video to Devin Tracy, he says.
Thank you very much. I don't know who Devin Tracy
and
is.
then
Who's
question. a question from Dildo Baggins. Could the problem in the black community be that there is a higher rate of fatherless households?
The problem, no, is that it's a huge issue. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I don't think anything more needs to be said about that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
What I'll say, we're at 9 o'clock. We usually wrap up about now. How many more questions have you got there, Mr. 42?
I'm empty right now because
Well, if you're empty, what I'll say is, if people, we'll answer them as they come up live. If they keep coming in the chat, we'll keep answering them. If they don't keep coming up in the chat, we'll draw a line under it for a minute. But I did say at the beginning of this debate, I was really not sure about putting it on because people could perceive it in a way as platforming racism, and I hope after listening to both sides, people realise we've not done that. And if that was happening, I would have ended the stream. I think we've had two people with very different opinions, controversial ones, but they've articulated themselves as best as they can in a really polite, respectful manner. So that's what I think. So thank you both for doing that. Appreciate it. And if nobody, like, if I wake up in the morning, everybody hasn't unsubscribed, we can do a round two. We'll see. Maybe the channel will be closed down now we've done this. We will see. Okay, so what was I going to say? We haven't got any more. Tatty Bob says bedtime for cats. It's not. It's tea time for cats because in an hour, just over an hour, myself and Team Skeptic are going to be rocking it out on the Conspiracy Cats channel with a live Chatbox Travels, and I'm looking forward to that. Mr. 42, have you got anything for us?
Yeah, but it also doesn't make sense. Ask her why there are fatherless households. I don't understand why that is even a question, because that happens in every environment, society.
Well, it does happen to a significantly larger degree in Black communities than it does in any other, in America at least. Why? We don't have strong enough family values, in my opinion, in our culture. Not in the way that others do. I do think that this aggression does play a part. It's hard to have the idea of staying with one person forever if you have, I don't know, your own internal issues. So it's really, really difficult to do that. So I think a lot of things come into play with that. So I mean, as well as a huge thing to lastly say about that is probably the gang violence, the gang culture that does not promote a lot of staying at home with the kids type deal. Doesn't make for a life that's easy for that. So, yeah.
Okie dokie. Mr. 42, you just take over. You see a question, fire it out. I think there's. Oh yeah, you got super chat. Go on, mate.
Yeah, super chat from Wait What for £5. Not a question, but thanks to both parties, Cats and Mr. 42.
Thank you, Wade. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, bud. So if we've got no more questions, what I'm going to do now when I close the stream down is I'm going to remember to put all the channel links in the description. So that's the first thing I'll do. Diedra, do you want me to put your Twitter in the description?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll do that, and then I'm going to go and cook myself some tea. Anyone who's interested, I'm having chips, chicken and curry, yeah, and a fowl, not even a vindaloo. I'm going one higher than that. So if you see me blowing out my arse when I'm on the Conspiracy Cat stream later on, that'll be why if I keep on the toilet. So I'll be doing that. But guys, honestly, thank you so much for keeping it.
And that's when we got demonetized.
That's when we got demonetized, yeah. Right, thank you so much for keeping it the way you've kept it. I really appreciate it. Thank you for everyone in the chat who's stuck with us. Yeah, we'll see you soon. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
All right, no problem. Thanks.